Hi, good morning. My name is Sam Kuhn. I am an economist at Adcast, and here today to talk to you about the latest data we got from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the U.S. labor market and what we're calling the calm before the storm. So, the U.S. labor market added 228,000 new jobs in March, which was far higher than economic consensus forecasts. This was good news. We did see that the unemployment rate ticked up slightly to 4.2%, but this was mostly for good reasons as the labor force participation expanded. So the main takeaway is that the U.S. labor market is still growing at a resilient pace. However, there's a few things that I want to note. We did see the 3-month job growth tick down to 152,000 as we saw that January and February's employment data was revised down a combined 48,000. So, what's the main question that I want to address today, which I am assuming is on a lot of people's minds, is if this is the calm before the storm following April 2nd's Liberation Day tariff announcements. Before I get to that, I want to talk about employment growth across sectors. So we continue to see that hiring is healthcare heavy, with nearly 40% of private employment gains concentrated in education and health services. Now, why is this important? Is because healthcare is acyclical, or effectively immune from the business cycle, and it has been averaging over 50,000 jobs added per month. If you want to learn more about this, I actually have a 4-part series on the healthcare labor market coming out on Recruitonomics.com. Talking about federal government employment, we saw that it only fell by 4,000 jobs, which is much lower than the 10,000 job decline we saw in January. However, of course, this does not include workers who took the fork-in-the-road offer of delayed severance. That won't see impacts until September. For retail, we did see that it had a strong month, adding 23,700 jobs, rebounding from a decline last month. And then lastly, something else that we have been watching very closely is the amount of hours people are working. We've seen that has been on the decline in recent months, and that actually held firm in March. Many economists have feared that perhaps employers were cutting back on hours in anticipation of future job cuts. But the share of the labor force discouraged from working or looking for work actually declined after a sharp rise in February. So, talking more about some signs of the storm. So, we saw that transportation and warehousing jobs were surprisingly strong. Couriers and messengers, workers who deliver parcels across cities and states, added nearly 16,000 jobs. Now, why is this? Well, consumers have actually pulled forward their consumption of many durable goods like washing machines or video consoles ahead of the impending tariff news, which has provided a short-term boost to the sector. So then ultimately, let's talk about this storm. So we now have more clarity on trade policy following Liberation Day on April 2nd. The average effective tariff rate in the economy is now above the level set by Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930. This is one of the largest changes in economic and global trade policy since President Nixon's decision to move away from the gold standard more than 50 years ago. So, how is this going to impact the economy? Well, the impending fallout from retaliatory tariffs from our trading partners across Europe and Asia will radically shift employment across manufacturing, retail, and construction as consumer goods prices rise in response to the tariffs. And we just got word this morning that China announced 34% retaliatory tariffs on all U.S. goods. Nearly all mainstream economists agree that tariffs raise inflation and slow the growth of the economy. The level of tariffs set on Wednesday was higher than expected, and the higher the level of the tariff, potentially the worse the impact. So what are some actual estimates of what this could do to the economy? Well, we got a report from the Budget Lab at Yale yesterday that estimates that this will subtract 1 percentage point from GDP growth this year, which is not a recession, but is a slowdown. And this is our base case, is that the U.S. economy will experience a slowdown this year. But this jobs report was the last real hard data point on the economy before the new tariff regime. So this month, in April, we get Q1 GDP growth from January to March. This will be the first major test of economic growth under the new administration. And this is the storm that we're preparing for. This can drastically alter the U.S. economy. I just advise everyone to please stay tuned to Recruitonomics.com, as we will publish a detailed analysis on this impact later today, Friday, April 2nd. Thank you all, and have a great weekend. Goodbye.